Good evening, everyone. And just a break from the usual setup for the Paranormal Misfit podcast, I did want to showcase a trailer for one of the paranormal cryptid shows that I do listen to while I'm working. It is the Paranormal Cryptid podcast trailer, and I hope you enjoy it. Make sure you check them out.
Welcome to Paranormally Cryptid Podcast. I am your host, Cody. We're looking into ghost stories, monster stories. So join me on this adventure to the Lost Forest or to uncover what is in the dark.
Hello, all my paranormal misfits, and welcome to the Paranormal Misfit podcast. I am your host, Chrissy, and I'm here to talk about all things paranormal and spooky. From experience that I or someone else has had, to the shows, movies, and books, to lores and legends, and to the places known for the paranormal. I'm going to talk about all of it. I myself am a believer with a healthy set of skepticism. You'll hear my thoughts and feelings about different topics revolving around the paranormal, so cozy up with your favorite beverage of choice and listen along.
Good evening.
You gotta say it again. Because the microphone's right there and you're like this far back.
Right, were you ready to press the one?
I already did it.
Oh.
It says stop recording if I wanted to.
Good evening.
Let's see. We're on the third episode of Paranormal Misfit Podcast, and tonight we're going over Bobby Mackey's with my special guest, my husband.
My name is Ray.
Your name is Ray?
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little tipsy.
A little tipsy? I know, these are pretty good, right? The terrapins?
Yeah, they're decent.
Yeah.
Chili.
Okay, so in the background we got Bobby Mackey's Music World, the first episode of the first season of Ghost Adventures playing.
Zach Bobo Bagans.
God, I'm so glad you said Bilbo, because you usually say something else. Alright. So, first things first, right? It's really freaking hard to find true history on this place without immediately getting information about all of the paranormal, because that's all everyone knows about this place. So, based on its dark history, we're going to go where the main focus is, which is really hard to figure out what is fact and what is fiction. All right, so this is what I found out. Okay, the site originally was a slaughterhouse in 1850 on 44 Licking Pike, Wilder, Kentucky. God, that's gotta suck. Anyways, so it was a very successful slaughterhouse and a meat packing facility that produced very quickly and effectively to bring revenue to the area. See, I did my research.
I don't remember reading about Licking Pike.
That is the address. It's not Licking Pipe. It's Licking Pike. Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. Let's see. There was a well, or really it was a drain, built in the basement for quickly cleaning the blood and other fluids that came from the animals while they were doing the slaughtering. So by the 1890s, the slaughterhouse did close down, and this is where all of the wild rumors and satanic rituals, well, not rituals, I shouldn't say rituals, but the rumors of satanic rituals came to be. So, still to this day, there's rumors of satanic cults doing rituals with both human and animal sacrifices, though no evidence or documentation was actually found to prove it factual. So many believe the rumors started as the rumors were stated as this location is actually next to a river that flows north as opposed to south. And within the paranormal community, they believe that if the river flows opposite of how it should flow, that it would help kind of drum up more paranormal.
Note to self, don't move to places like that.
We do, babe. But I want to say the St. John's River runs opposite. Okay. Anyways, so the fact that the basement has a well, actually wells, that disposes right into the river, which is called the Licking River. Licking.
Well, I wouldn't be able to live there with a straight face.
And
Who does that?
Kentucky. And the area is secluded. So in 1896, it was considered the crime of the century. Okay. So let's remember this crime of the century for later. The crime of the century was committed around the area of Bobby Mackey's, but did not happen inside of it. This case was heavily documented. Heavily documented within the like newspapers and everything all across the United States, however big that was in the 1890s. And so the victim was 22-year-old Pearl Bryan, and she was killed by the hands of her not so wonderful boyfriend and his roommate. So their names were Scott Jackson and Alonzo Walling. So Scott Jackson was the boyfriend. The two guys were dental students and had tried unsuccessfully first to give her abortion remedies, and when those didn't work, she was about 5 months pregnant. She came down to visit Scott, and they ended up drugging her to try and make the abortion happen a little bit faster. And when that didn't work, they killed her in the woods and decided to cut her head off and disposed of it. And there's a bunch of different ways they said they disposed of it. One time they said they threw it in the river. One time they said they threw it somewhere else. Another time they said they burned it. So no one ever knows where the head went. So after this slaughterhouse was torn down, and at some point between there and to Bobby Mackey's Music World, it was a bowling alley, very short-lived. And in the 1930s, it was transformed into what's called the Beacon Inn, which also operated as a casino.
Hey, about those guys, I remember a fact I read earlier.
Okay.
They caught them because they left her shoes on. And shoes
Yes.
at the time.
Yeah, so the shoes at the time when she had them, so they were very specific. They were specifically made for her, so they were able to trace them back to the person who made her shoes from her hometown.
You did tell me that.
I did tell you that. See, look at that.
I read it earlier, too.
Okay. All right. So in 1940, a Buck Brady purchased it. That's his name. And made it into one of the most successful casinos outside of Newport. Little bit of backstory about the area and the surrounding areas. They were heavy into the mob activities, so you know how the mob connections go. So in Newport, you have a crime mob connection known as the Cleveland Four. And they were kind of pushing their way into the area and trying to obtain very popular casinos and bars and stuff around the area. So Buck, was that his name? Yes, Buck. I was going to about call him Bucky. Buck.
Too much Captain America. Stop it.
Bucky was originally a bootleg runner during the Prohibition era because he bought it in about the 1930s, 1940s. So from his Prohibition era, from doing that, he took the earnings that he had saved up and bought this area. Invested into the Beacon Inn, in which he later rebranded it as the Primrose. There's no E in there. Known for their not so subtle ways of pushing people out of locations because they are the mob, the Cleveland Four employed the muscle of Albert Red Masterson. Red, look at that. To get Bucky, or not Buck, God. Thanks.
It's okay.
Thank you.
It's okay. Just gotta go with it.
So they were trying to get Buck out of his place. So when Buck started feeling some heat, he tried to take matters into his own hands and attempted to murder Red unsuccessfully. So instead, what happened was he took a shotgun, thought he shot Red dead. Red was not dead. He was saved by the ambulance. They popped him in the ambulance. He was transported to the hospital, was saved, and then, a big trial happened, right?
Red's gonna be pissed off.
Red
getting some buckshot.
Was going to be pissed off. So the whole trial happens, and Red refuses to name Buck as the shooter. And instead, in court, states that he wanted to take care of it his own way. So, with that lovely threat in court, Buck sold his Primrose to the Cleveland Four and hightailed it to Florida, where he later died by his own hands in his late 60s or so. So we're looking at the 1980s, I think. The building goes through a remodel by the mob and is later called the Latin Quarter. So the mob's newly acquired club became quickly known for its upscale restaurant and bar, as well as its casino that housed a secret room in the back.
I don't have a secret room, but it sounds like fun.
Ah, that sounds like some. What is that? What was that?
Maybe that's like my closet
Is
where all
that
my models
your
are.
closet? Your 40K models?
My secret room.
Your Magic the Gathering cards.
I keep those hidden in there occasionally.
All right. In addition to famous entertainers that performed at this club, as including the lovely Nat King Cole and Duke Ellington, there was a resident chorus line complete with glamorous girls, gorgeous costumes, and flashy dance routines similar to the ones you see in Vegas now. Despite local police raids, the Latin Quarter prospered and remained open for many years. I wonder why.
The amount of bribes going through that place.
Oh, look at that. During many of the raids, the owners received tips several minutes before the police arrived, which allowed them time to hide their gambling paraphernalia in the basement with a secret staircase. Mm-hmm. Which is still found in the building's basement. Thanks to advanced tips, police often arrive to find men simply playing pool and enjoying the entertainment. Although several arrests related to gambling were made over the years, the club overcame these trials and remained a popular nightclub and casino. However, in the 1960s, the mob's hold over Newport began to loosen as many of the leaders transferred their operations to the newly developed Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas.
Dancing girls.
This led to a decrease in gambling operations, which were slowly being replaced by increased prostitution and strip clubs.
Do you think people would come see me at a strip club?
Absolutely, hair and all. It'd be like watching
I'll be a flamingo dancer.
a flamingo. It's flamenco.
Oh, I didn't mess that up.
Flamingo is the bird. Flamenco.
You said yes. You married me.
Okay, that's fine. Anyways, during the Latin years, the building saw many tragic stories, including one that revolves around a girl that danced in the chorus line. She went by the stage name of Johanna, Jewel, most commonly referred to as Johanna. Johanna's real name is not known. Therefore, the story is nearly impossible to corroborate with historical evidence, which I'll come back to her tragic story later because she is considered one of the haunts. All right, by the 1970s. All right, so we went from Okay. After the mob moved on to bigger and better things elsewhere, this place became a nightclub and a bar in which biker gangs frequent. And at this point, it was called the Hard Rock Cafe, not like the Hard Rock Cafe that we hear about, like, down in Disney and stuff. Or was the Hard Rock in Disney? I don't remember.
It's in Orlando.
Hard Rock Cafe, not to be confused basically with the successful chain restaurant,
right,
whatever they are. So at this point, when you have biker gangs, this is where things get physically violent. To the physical violence of the area kind of comes to an end thanks to some rowdy people. So there's two local bike gangs that thrived in the area: the Iron Horse Motorcycle Club and the Seventh Sons. The two gangs saw this Hard Rock Cafe as shared territory. Both gangs freely met there. Despite the shared territory, violent fights and shootings occurred frequently, calling it the... What was it called? I believe it was called the... Was it like the murder? No, the Bloody Bucket. The Bloody Bucket.
I thought you were going to say something catchy like Slap a Hoe Cafe or something.
I wish. The shootings and all that... Thanks. Occurred frequently, and by early 1978, local police finally closed the club after a fatal shooting, deeming it a public nuisance. Isn't that great?
Bloody Bucket is a public nuisance. Right.
That was its nickname. That was the nickname. It was still the Hard Rock Cafe, okay?
Something that intense.
All right. So the place, like I said, the place closes in early 1978. By spring of 1978, famous country singer, which I didn't even know he was a country singer, I ain't even gonna lie, Bobby Mackey buys the place. Mackey purchases the building with dreams of turning it into a successful country music nightclub that he could use as a venue to promote not only his music, but other country artists' music. So he works hard to repair the old building, and with the help of his wife Janet Mackey and their first employee Carl Lawson, Bobby Mackey's music world quickly began to grow in popularity. Now, he employed Lawson because Lawson had originally worked at the Hard Rock Cafe and knew the building well. So he hired him as a caretaker and a maintenance man, and he eventually turned the upstairs office into an apartment for him, in which Lawson lived there for many years. Over the years, Lawson, obviously, as we have watched in many different paranormal shows, plays a major part in the building's history, especially with the reputation of it being haunted. All right. So,
I can picture his face.
I bet you can after seeing it on TV.
Right. Glasses. Kind of like has a lost look to him. Like
The thick eyebrows.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, after all of that, so we're going to get into the paranormal claims now and the stories that really put this place on the map. So, one such individual who experienced the hauntings and demonic presence within the building was the former caretaker, obviously, Carl Lawson, who lived upstairs. He was said to have been possessed by spirits, and his exorcism was performed in the club's kitchen. Stop it.
You can't do
Stop
that.
It.
Okay?
Stop it.
It's the holy place of eating, not exorcism.
All right. So the club manager, which I didn't have a name at the time, had also claimed on several occasions she would go through the club to make sure everything was turned off and closed. Oh, it was in this episode of Ghost Adventures.
I don't remember what her name was.
Me neither.
I read it earlier too.
She would go through and make sure everything was turned off and closed for the night. Then hours later, she'd find the bar lights were on, the front door was unlocked, and the jukebox was playing the anniversary waltz, even though the jukebox was, that is a weird thing to say, was unplugged and still contained, and did not contain that song, right?
The jukebox is still in there?
They were showing it earlier.
I'd have taken that thing out.
Might have bashed it a little bit, sprinkled some holy water.
Look, Office Space is a great inspiration.
Great to be a gangster. In an interview, she said while closing, she felt the building shake along with the walls, floors, and ceilings. When she was able to get outside, she realized the outside area around the building was still and calm. Patrons, this is always fun. Patrons have also shared spotting apparitions, claiming to have witnessed descriptions of a headless ghost dressed in a turn of the century clothing. So they're referencing back to Pearl. And photos of Buck Brandy also match descriptions of often seen ghosts. Others have claimed to experience suffocating heat, a flying trash can.
You talking about suffocating heat in a bar where people were drinking heavily?
Yeah. And a man with a handlebar mustache repeating die game, which it literally is spelled DIEGAME.
Right.
But for them, it says Latin for dying well and dying good, which I didn't go and cross-reference, and I should probably cross-reference in a bit just to look it up, in the men's restroom. According to the Travel Channel's documentary on this place, Bobby's wife was overcome by the scent of roses in the basement, grabbed around the waist, picked up, thrown down, and pushed down the stairs by a force that resembles sketches of Alonzo Walling screaming, "Get out, get out," which doesn't make any sense because when you look at the history, Alonzo, Pearl, and Scott, which were the crime of the century, this is where she gets beheaded and she's killed by her boyfriend and his friend,
right,
had never stepped foot in or near that particular area. Because during that time, that area was still the slaughterhouse.
What I was reading is Alonzo cursed the grounds, I thought. I don't know.
It's kind of a toss-up because I found that too.
But you're like talking about how many years in between now and then?
Oh, I don't know. So it is confirmed multiple times that she refuses to set foot in the club. Bobby has since remarried, not sure when, and his current wife does come in and speak to the paranormal of the place. which was in a later episode that I saw. Uh,
Speak to the ghosts.
you're
Get out of my house. Sorry.
fine. J.R. Constigan, probably butchered that last name. A bar regular fond of Western style clothing and ice water in equal measure reported an attack in the men's bathroom. So here's where this sign comes into place. All right. At Bobby Mackey's. While washing his hands, he looked in the mirror and there it was, a man-shaped hole in the air, complete with a cowboy hat. It came at him, punching, kicking, clawing, beating him until he fainted. Upon recovery, he ran straight to Bobby and told him that he had to get control of his club's evil spirits. Now remember, Bobby Mackey still pretty much to this day is a very skeptical person when it comes to how his club is.
Right.
So Bobby laughed, assuming it was a joke, but JR wasn't laughing. He sued Bobby for negligence in allowing I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. All right. Okay. Bobby laughed, assuming it was a joke, but JR wasn't laughing. He sued Bobby. He sued Bobby for negligence in allowing the ghost to operate without any warnings to the patrons. The judge threw the case out, recommending that JR take the matter up with a higher power. Following the advice of his lawyer, Bobby put up the warning sign that everyone sees now. At the front entrance, the ghost, by all accounts, remains in the commode. Sorry.
I could just envision this judge glaring down, going, "Really? What is this? We got other people dying, and like, you really gonna bring a ghost case into my courthouse?"
Could you imagine the arguing? Could you imagine being the lawyer in that case, having to argue this?
No. All right, so what we're gonna do on Tuesday?
We're gonna go in. We're gonna snap
this
pictures.
Man was assaulted by a ghost.
Do you have physical proof?
Good God,
Okay.
man.
All right. Okay. So let's go back to Joanna. So the haunting of Joanna is one of the least. This one has the least amount of credible factual information, but the biggest ghost to haunt the place. Okay. So the tragic story of Joanna changes depending on the site that you find, which is true. The person you hear it from, or the show you watch. Speaking of Joanna, she is one of two of the most popular legends associated with the location to feature a tragic female figure. So the building is said to be haunted by two men who. Okay, this is not the Joanna case. This is Pearl's case. So one of the stories is that the building is said to be haunted by the two men who murdered the young pregnant woman, Pearl Bryan, cutting her head off and then disposing it. So stories around this one, which is also not factual. Basically, of where they disposed of the head is where it's not factual. Them cutting her head off was factual. So they cut her head off and disposing the head into one of the drain sites in what is described as a satanic sacrifice.
I really feel like you got one story covering up another false story.
Mm-hmm.
Is what that sounds like.
It is, and it's just to, I guess, get more attention.
Yeah, as soon as you can't explain something, oh, it's satanic, it's a ritual,
right?
It just is automatic and whatever.
Okay.
You're drunk.
Right? Get out of here. Which, I'm not drunk yet. Okay. When the old well, which is also a drain, basically, was uncovered years later by the caretaker, Mr. Lawson.
They're actually showing it on TV.
Which, of course, they are. Why? Yeah, I would be talking about it in my podcast, and we would look over at the TV of episode 1, season 1 of Ghost Adventures with Mr. Zach Bagandiddles. And they're at the well in a big asshole. Okay. So, is considered the portal to hell, which they all claim that Carl Lawson himself opened. Carl then claimed to be possessed by a freed evil entity. I thought it was entities, depending on which show you watch, but entity. The basement area and the supernatural vortex located at the well or drain um, are promoted as a legendary location of occult activity on the Bobby Mackey website and is part of the paranormal themed tour of the site. I guess if you can't beat them, join them, right?
No.
No, I'm talking about the paranormal.
Oh,
Bobby
sorry.
Mackey doesn't believe in it, but he's just like, fuck it, I'll just go with it anyways. Like, get me some more money.
Yeah.
All right, so the basement is also the location of former dressing rooms for performers of the upstairs club. The story of Joanna, which now I'm kind of confused because they said the basement's the location of the former dressing rooms, but where Joanna took her life, I thought was above the stage. Could be wrong. I need to go. I think it's like Ghost Hunters might have a different story.
There's a lot going on with this one.
There is. So, story of Joanna, who is described as a club dancer in the 1940s, is said that she fell in love with a man whom her father, a mobster, did not approve of. Her plight was recorded in a mysterious diary, which was also found by Mr. Lawson, who discovered it in the covered well.
This guy's discovering a lot.
Right? In a covered well. You telling me in the 1940s the well was still open and she threw it down there before she, like, you know.
Maybe with her 1940 Ziploc bag.
Stop it. Okay, anyways. A final love poem is penned on the wall. Neither story stands up to scrutiny in relation to the current building and is a well publicized haunted history. Oh, is this where he thinks he gets scratched?
Yes.
Sorry, we have the Ghost Adventures playing in the back. Okay.
I think it's an excuse to show off his muscular back.
This is before he starts getting tattoos of like almost each location he goes and visits or whatever. I forgot what he does with his tattoos. Oh, okay. All right. Keep going. Oh, look, we're at 25 minutes. Okay. Anyways, the current owner of the building is the country music aficionado, Mr. Bobby Mackey, who bought the club as obviously a live music venue. So kind of like our Freebirds that, you know, got bought out a few years ago, 5-10 years ago. I say a few. I think it's been longer.
It's been a long time.
Right? Paranormal tales regarding the site ramped up since then, though Bobby Mackey himself has never experienced any trouble. Others have reported physical and emotional attacks at the location, including, okay, so his my brain is going too fast. Or maybe it's going too slow, my mouth is going too fast. But anyways, it's his late wife, Janet, was the one who was pushed down the stairs and everything. Who was allegedly attacked by an invisible entity. Other people have claimed that they have been assaulted by forces that threw them across the room. Employees, visitors, and paranormal investigators reported experience of shadow people, mist, disembodied voices, balls of light, strong feelings of others being present, and recordings of EVPs or electronic voice phenomena. Yes.
Bobby Mackey sounds like he's got the whole dinosaur T-Rex thing going. If he stays still, it won't see him. Maybe that's how it is. I don't know.
Or maybe if you're just that much of a skeptic, you stay that oblivious.
That's
and
true.
like you're not attracting it to you, right? God, now you threw me off. Okay.
Sorry, it's me with beer. Me and beer. Okay.
About 40. Here's the wild part. About 40 different spirits have been identified as inhabiting the site by various visitors and self-described psychics. I almost said physics, and then I realized wrong word. A dark entity is said to be present that is particularly dangerous to women. So, here we go with the shows. The location was featured on a 2006 episode of the television show Haunting. The location was also featured multiple times on Ghost Adventures with Mr. Zach Bagans, who documented his belief that he was possessed by a demonic force there. Oh my god, I should not be laughing. He also claimed to have contact with the ghosts of the convicted Brian murderer. Jesus Christ.
Hey, it's a lot going on. And some of it is funny.
Okay. We have Ghost Adventures, who did a small investigation on Bobby Mackey's in 2011, season 7, episode 23. In that episode, they were told that a spirit George inhabits upstairs in Mr. Lawson's apartments and only attacks women, especially pregnant women who are 5 months pregnant. Now, I don't know how a ghost will know if someone's 5 months pregnant.
Yeah, I feel like that's really specific.
Right? Their evidence is shown. The evidence they show had high EMF readings, but did debunk that it could be the wires in the pipes, and that with high enough EMF readings, that can cause anyone to feel like they're always being watched or a really heavy feeling of uneasiness.
Yeah.
They also shared an EVP of the supposed Joanna talking to them. Their really cute dog honed in on a certain location and an EVP at this location. They also had an EVP at that location where that she honed in really, really well on. They got an EVP at the well. However, I would like to point out that they did not have a demonic entity attachment, nor did a demonic entity reach out to them. All right. Now, I'm going to touch on our lovely men, the Ghost Adventurers. Ghost Adventurers. Okay. Just did Ghost Hunters. So, the show that really played it up and ran wild with the evil demonic spirit routes was Ghost Adventures, the favorite Scooby Doo gang, led by none other than Mr. Zach Bagans. So, Ghost Encounter's first encounter with Bobby. Whew. Hello, everyone. Just as a how do I say this? Just as a fix in the error of what I have said previously in this snippet here, when we're talking about those who the ghost paranormal show that actually comes into contact with the spirit of George. That's actually Ghost Hunters and not Ghost Adventures. So I just wanted to go ahead and clarify that. So the first encounter with Ghost Adventures happens in 2008, episode 1, season 1. In the episode, the guys capture a shadow man in what they think is a cowboy hat. Continuously call it the portal to hell or Hell's Gates. God, I can't stop laughing. Here we actually get to physically meet Mr. Lawson and see a snippet of his exorcism that was performed years earlier. The guys do their usual provoking tactics. They feel bursts of cold air around them, EVPs of female voices, loud bangs in the bathroom, which does scare Nick while he's trying to relieve himself, in which he runs out and freaks out and tells them what happens.
Are you sure somebody didn't fart?
He said he was in there by himself, so if he farted and scared himself, then he must have fell asleep and is, just going down the route here. Okay.
I know. Sorry.
EVP of a male singing or humming. Zach gets scratched at the infamous well, in which they think it was demonic because it was 3 scratches, which they thought was mocking of the Trinity,
yep.
The Holy Trinity. I mean, so that's the first episode. Then they return again to the infamous Hell's Gate in 2010. So season 4, episode 3. This time we get the possession of Zach, after which he hears a low growl. And then Aaron also gets possessed. Disembodied growl, voices, apparitions again. More EVPs, and then physical contact. They then make another 2 stops to this location during their respective seasons. One was to pay respects to Carl Lawson as he had passed away. And then another again when they were at the Winchester Mystery House to run an experiment to kind of link the 2 evil portals together, though neither area was ever proven to be an evil portal.
That's not even. You just gotta let it go,
right? Then finally, in later episodes, which I mentioned in season 1, or not season 1, but episode 1 of this podcast, Zach has sworn off this location as a whole. The guys will never return here, as they have had attachments and misfortunes after leaving this place. I want to say after, I believe it's the first episode, Aaron deals with getting divorced. Because it takes a toll on him and his wife can't take it, so they end up divorced. Anyways, So, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Another 3 shows do their investigations on this location. So we have Portals to Hell with Katrina and Jack, uh, which is a good episode. I would, however, like to point out that Portals to Hell happens after Paranormal Lockdown, in which Katrina goes there with Nick Groff, who was a former Ghost Adventures associate.
So her view may be skewed.
Right.
Before she ever goes back.
But it doesn't make any sense that her view is skewed because when she goes there with Nick, they don't have as nearly negative experiences as she does with Jack. And it's not to say that, every time they should go there, they should have the same experience, but, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
That with Nick, who had been there previously and had terrible times at that location, has a decent time coming out of this location. And her and Jack, end up in the hospital. What did they say? They ended up in the hospital. Yep. And, Jack was called by a psychic and was told he had an attachment.
That he would lose his sight.
And that he would lose his... That was during the episode, yeah. But after the episode, after filming and everything, there was another psychic he had never met before. And she had said he had an attachment. But in the Paranormal Lockdown, which had Nick Groff and Katrina, there was debunking of the case that dealt with Pearl and the hauntings associated with Bobby Mackey's. So it was proven that she was killed 4 miles away from Bobby Mackey's. So, she wasn't killed anywhere near the site. The guys were nowhere near the site unless they were just running through the woods wild, high off of something. Because back in them days, you could just easily get cocaine out of the pharmacy.
Moonshine.
No, cocaine out of the pharmacy.
Oh.
Snort a little bit and go running. And then the newest episode with the newest hauntings, basically, or the newest findings of this haunted location, would be Ghost Brothers Lights Out, which is playing right now.
It's amazing and hysterical.
Right? For the most part, all the TV shows had the same thing. Shadow people touching EVPs, and just a high creep factor. So we're going to debunk this place a little bit. Okay. All news reports, statements made by Jackson and Walling, as well as all the court documents that can still be found and researched today, show that the crime scene was not at Bobby Mackey's site, but over 4 miles away. The route taken by the party was most likely devised based upon the avoidance of toll booth authorities. Therefore, they may have passed the building that night, but there's no indication that they stopped there. During police interrogation, both men actually accused each other of throwing Pearl's head off of the bridge in the Ohio River. Now remember, Bobby Mackey's is near Licking River, not the Ohio River. And the Ohio River is one of the very few corroborating statements made by both men, so that is most likely factual. However, as stated before, they've never found the head, and they never made mention of the supposed well in their statements or testimonies when talking about the murder of Pearl Bryan.
I'm still surprised you said Licking River with a straight face.
It's really hard. Really hard. It's really hard.
I don't even want to say it with a straight face. I'm sorry. I should get back on topic. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The evidence at the crime scene indicate that there was only one single person involved, which contrasts the claims that Bryan's murder was actually part of a cult ritual, which you hear in different shows. The association between the murder and the mention of the satanic cult activity is a recent one. Writer Cadwell was able to speak to a woman who was in high school in 1977 in Wilder, Kentucky, who stated that she actually remembered learning about this murder in her history class. So there's no mention of the occult activity or satanic ritual associated with it at that time. So that was 1977. She recalled that those rumors did not start until after the establishment became Bobby Mackey's Music World in 1978. Furthermore, no news reports of that time made mention of satanic or occult association, which would have been expected as those are very sensational details. The lack of support in court documents and testimonies of all involved exponentially weakens the idea that Jackson and Walling were part of a secret satanic cult. Current legend expands the idea of the basement as well as the location of the cult activity and multiple blood sacrifices. Again, there's no evidence for this, which tends to fall in line with the moral panic regarding the non-existent satanic satanic cult activity of the 1980s.
I don't know if I said it before, but I mean everything's satanic when it's scary or ooh, it's a demon. I mean, it all always goes back to that.
The occult angle may have originated with Mr. Lawson, the former caretaker of Bobby Mackey's, who claimed he was demonically possessed by spirits at the club, who informed him, which is wild, who informed him that Pearl Bryan was murdered as part of the satanic ritual and her head was thrown down the well as sacrifice. His story is recounted in the 2005 book Hell's Gate Terror at Bobby Mackey's Music World by Douglas Hensley. Hensley claims that he interpreted the story told to him by Mr. Lawson. Lawson appears to have related the paranormal tales to Mackey to the early days of the venue, which is like at the beginning when it opened in 1978. Though Mackey did not care for the tales, Hensley's book is also credited by Mr. Mackey himself as stoking interest in the legends. Lawson did pass away in January 26th of 2012. Yes.
Now here's the thing. So like, okay, let's entertain the idea that he is possessed or talking to a demon or whatever. Demons are supposedly known to lie. So what if it told him that story just to scare him?
But let's go with this fact, though. Okay. Lawson was connected to this building prior to it being Bobby Mackey's. He was connected to it when it was the biker club.
Yeah.
Biker clubs, not to say all of them, but biker clubs, most of them, whether you're going based off what you watch on TV or what you hear in the news, there's usually a transport of drugs.
Right.
There's usually alcohol. You got fights, addiction, and if you're looking at evil as a whole, technically people believe that when you have addictions that you are possessed by demons, or that a demon can heighten an addiction, whichever way you want to look at it, if you're on a spiritual level like that.
Yeah.
So now, with all of that being said, does it seem like this place could be a hotbed for the paranormal and a gateway to hell, or is it just overhyped area that when people walk in, they've already built up the expectations of experiencing the paranormal there due to the hype of the book, stories, legends, and shows that have showcased this location? That's a question for you.
So I don't know, but I'm not going in there. Okay.
Why?
Because
that is like a dream location.
I'm not playing around. You get people talking
it's
about...
a 2-hour tour. It's like a 2-hour tour like we do in St. Augustine.
I might take a 2-hour tour, but I'm not staying there for long. Like, you start talking about attachments, and that's no thank you. I'll go to the was it
Winchester Mystery House?
Yeah, the Winchester House. I actually want to do that, but Bobby Mackey's attachment house, you can keep it.
That's not an attachment house.
Okay. It's okay.
Your favorite band plays there for like 6 hours. They do a whole, what do you like to go to? They do a whole Rockville there. Inside location, nice AC, get you cold drinks.
I might. It doesn't have to be a stick in the mud.
You might just have to be listen from the outside?
Yes. I listen from the outside from my car.
Now, what do you think about the rumors that they're talking about it's on fault lines? Which is funny. I've only heard it in one episode, and the dog is barking. Old man's barking.
As far as the fault lines go,
I mean, isn't Kentucky near Arkansas?
I'm terrible at geography, to be honest with you, but I think that you would find that information easily accessible if it was sitting on a fault line. And I didn't see anything earlier when I looked.
Okay.
It's not
like California, right? No. That deals with like the earth. Because when I hear fault line, I think of earthquakes.
You should have seismic activity.
Like, what is it called? The San Andreas?
I think it's the San Andreas fault line. Like I said, I'm not good with geography.
That's okay. I'm not good with geometry, so there's two G's we're not good at.
I'm good at geometry.
Are you? You're a carpenter?
I'm not a carpenter, but I can make it happen.
Oh, okay.
The geometric shapes and angles.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to say to all the listeners out there?
Thanks for listening.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Paranormal Misfits. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on whichever platform you're listening to on. And give me a follow on Instagram at Paranormal Misfit. If you have your own spooky paranormal story you'd like to share or want to hear about a particular lore, place, or whatnot, please feel free to drop me a DM in Instagram. And on that note, I will catch you all later at the next episode, my ghouls.